Hello, everyone, and welcome. Uh, let me turn on my video before we get started. I hope you're all safe and healthy, and thanks for spending some time with us today. I'm familiar with a lot of the people who are joining, but for those new folks, I'm Isaac Brown. I lead the Industrial Tech Group here at Landmark Ventures. We have a lot of content to cram into 30 minutes, so let's just jump into it. And throughout the conversation, please feel free to submit questions via the Q&A box. You can start firing them off as soon as you want, and we'll try and include them in the discussion. And we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A as well. Now, we're here today to discuss the impact of technology on industrial business continuity, and specifically some of the obstacles associated with driving digital transformation across industrial operations. So I'd like to start by introducing our panelists. We've got Bimal, who's VP of Innovation and Startup Partnerships for Schneider Electric. Schneider is one of the major global providers of solutions for energy and industrial markets. We've also got Jim, who's VP of IoT Solutions at Sierra Wireless. Sierra Wireless is a leading provider of IoT and digital solutions. Now, guys, let's just kick this off with a couple of quick intros. Maybe you could just briefly introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your roles. Just 30 seconds each. Bimal, why don't you go first with a quick intro?
Sure. Good morning, and thanks, Isaac, for including me in this session. In terms of introduction, so once again, my name is Bimal Mehta, and I'm part of Schneider Electric. Have been with them for over 12 years. For the last 3 years, I've been part of this new and exciting organization within Schneider Electric, what we refer to as innovation at the edge, which kind of think of us as the corporate venture arm. But in addition to the investment team, we have an incubation team, and personally, I'm part of the partnerships team. And my role, which our CEO actually often refers to as like one of the best jobs you can have within the company, is to really link these startups with the lines of businesses and kind of look at where the startups might fit within which lines of businesses, and vice versa, like looking at what problems the lines of businesses are trying to solve and which startups are out there in the ecosystem.
Excellent. Thanks, Bimal. Jim, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Isaac. Good morning to everybody. My name is Jim Wells. I'm based in Austin, Texas. I work here at Sierra Wireless, and I'm responsible for the IoT Solutions Sales Organization for the Americas region. This includes our modules business as well as our connectivity services business. I've been here at Sierra for almost 2 years. Before that, I spent about 3 years with Jasper, leading the enterprise business development group there, which eventually got acquired by Cisco. And prior to that, I was with Verizon for about 12 years in a whole bunch of different roles, mostly on the wireless side. I spent about the last 10 years when I was at Verizon focused on what we originally called M2M and then started to call IoT. So IoT has been my world for a very long time. But thank you very much for inviting me to participate today. Really excited to be here.
Thanks, guys. So let's get started with a big picture question. How can industrial enterprises ensure business continuity during uncertain times? Who wants to shed some light on that? Bimal, you want to go ahead?
Sure, I can get started. So, I think when it comes to business continuity, and if we take the current uncertain times of COVID-19, that really didn't change the overall priorities which the company had, right? Like for Schneider Electric, our purpose is to really empower and make the most of our energy and resources, and to kind of bridging that progress and sustainability for all. And our logo, which you can see on the video, is all about life is on, right? But having said that, the uncertainty or the business continuity has reinforced our focus on efficiency and digital. And to give you a classic example, like, for us at Schneider, we are not only a vendor, but also a consumer, because we have over 200 manufacturing sites, and we also kind of, support our customers. So if I look at from a operator perspective, like, our theme was to operate the manufacturing safely, but operate them. So in terms of, planning yeah, everybody plans, and there are always events, right? Whether it's COVID or recession or climate change, like, kind of as long as the overall priorities and its focus is there, like, you kind of continue to operate, in a resilient and a sustainable manner.
Great. Thanks, Vimal. So kind of a similar question that I want to pitch to Jim. What steps can industrial organizations take to ensure that they remain agile and resilient? So Jim, how have you seen this unfold?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, the no-brainer discussion point here is the pandemic, right? And many organizations have found themselves in a situation where suddenly they have to enable a large swath of their workforce to work efficiently in a remote setting. And so the whole concept of disaster recovery or backup communications capabilities completely changes, because now you're having to do it in this distributed fashion across many different environments. So one of the things that a lot of folks here at Sierra have done internally is we've literally, ordered up one of our own routers, right? And some people are using that as their primary connectivity for work because they may have 3 kids in the house who are streaming video for their school, right? Or kids at home who are doing things and taking up that bandwidth. So it's a completely different environment that we all know that. Ensuring that the employees have those communication tools, the high bandwidth they need, no matter where they are. And then the other thing that becomes important is, the idea of remote monitoring your operations, right? Being able to access connected apps, video, all those things. When everybody's in the office, that's a completely different set of challenges versus having to support that in this distributed fashion. So I think that is what everybody needs to focus on, what people have been focusing on. We've seen it here at Sierra, and I'm sure many folks in our audience have seen, there's been a journey that's happened over these past 6 months as companies adjust to that reality.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm home, and they're about to shut down our schools again. So I will very shortly have a lot of kids on Zoom at home with me, and I might I hope you'll give me a discount on one of those routers, Jim.
Yeah.
Vimal, do you have any response to that?
Yeah, so I think in addition to what Jim just mentioned, right? Like, I think when the pandemic hit, even for Schneider with over 160,000 employees, like now suddenly working remote, except like, where the manufacturing was going on, like we had to gear up in terms of how do we um, support our employees working from home and how to kind of continue that work, right? But I think yeah, like looking back, what this situation has kind of given rise to has just accelerated digital, right? Like everything's kind of getting digitized, and it's almost like we internally call it like remote everything, right? Like, for how do you support and enable remote operations for our field service ops, like where so that instead of kind of lugging the van to the site and kind of trying to do it, like, is there something we can do remotely and save the field service associate to kind of go on site, like can something be done remotely? Also, are there ways to kind of automate a lot of things in terms of unmanned operations? So like looking at more of the automation side, whether it's with robotics or like few things which can be done remotely. And kind of taking on the theme of remote, like with collaborative design aspect, like because we support like on the design side of things. How do we enable people or our employees servicing our customers to collaborate remotely? And then also what one one of the things that we've seen, and we've kind of also um, implemented that at some of our sites, is with this whole topic of remote training, right? Like, how do you leverage the AR VR tools to kind of enable both not only the knowledge transfer but also kind of ensuring the employees are getting trained on new ways to do business. So those are some of the ways that we are approaching both for ourselves and for customers. And like the underlying theme becomes, how do you do more with less?
Interesting. Yeah, I think so. One thing I want to touch on, based on what you guys just said, is business model innovation. Right? You have all these different solutions being sold now into industrial operations. But Mal, you have a good lens on this because Schneider sells them to companies all over the world, but you also buy them and deploy them internally. And then Jim, you've been selling different kinds of connectivity solutions to enterprises for a long time. So I think that one of the inhibitors in the space has been business models, right? And how many vendors you need to buy stuff from in order to deploy a solution, right? Because a lot of these digital industrial solutions require a lot of different elements. So I guess I would kind of just ask another big picture question here is, what's the right business model for selling digital solutions into industrial operations? Who wants to jump on that one?
I can start on this one. So I've been thinking about this, right? Obviously, I've been living it. I watched the transformation at Verizon over a period of time. I watched what we did at Jasper as we tried to drive enterprise demand, and then what we've been doing here at Sierra for the last couple of years to sort of continue this transformation into a recurring revenue services-based business. So a couple of principles that I would articulate. Number one is don't try to boil the ocean. Right, sell where you know. So in our case, for example, we have a large book of customers that we've been selling to for many years on the hardware side. So a lot of what we've been doing over these past couple of years is assisting those customers with starting to think about, okay, how can we combine hardware and connectivity, right? How can we figure out how those things can work together to solve a whole host of problems? There's ecosystems out there that are really important to plug into, right? As you said, customers don't want to deal with like 50 different partners, right? They would prefer to deal with someone who can be, to some extent, a single throat to choke, or at least someone who can help them navigate through the different elements of the solution without having to go out and figure it all out on their own. I think another key principle is flexibility, right? Being able to support, different ways of looking at things. In a lot of cases, with our customers, we are trying to bring together two solution components that have traditionally been handled in very different parts of the customer's business. And so we try to provide flexibility. So for example, the ability to have flexibility around, OpEx versus CapEx, right? When thinking about combining hardware and connectivity solutions, for example. So those are some of the key things that I know we've been focused on here that can help technology providers kind of navigate how to deal with this brave new world.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think?
So I think we are no different. Like I think like maybe the nuances are in terms of what industries and what segments we serve. But I think just going off on like the previous point, like it's like digitization is kind of accelerating, and how do we as Schneider kind of offer more digital services, whether it's in terms of advisors, and we have launched quite a few advisors for industry specific segments or customers, which kind of bring in different pieces of information from the hardware devices or other applications to make it easier for the customers to do their job, whether it's on site or remotely, right? Like especially now where a lot of emphasis is being placed on remote or kind of the mobile worker side of things. And then also the other business model innovation, like besides like just the transitioning from capex to opex, is also like what can we as vendors do more kind of under the realm of digital services, like, and helping the customers digitally transform from where they are and kind of bring them along on their journey, if you will. And that advisors kind of play a big role for us to kind of get them started, help them visualize, and then kind of adding the connectivity to other pieces, if you will. And then also what we've seen, to what Jim said, like not to boil the ocean, like there are things where, if we partner with other startups, especially in my role, that's what we kind of focus on, right? Like how do we kind of bring in um, startups and or partners which can help accelerate our vision of the digital transformation. And some of the models which we've seen, um, whether it's like a full stack where you're not kind of separating out software, hardware and services. It's like a all in one, like the hardware or the software and services all included on a yearly basis to kind of just get started. And it literally takes 15-20 minutes to connect the sensors, get the data up and running, and getting the data to visualize, and off you go on your work type of thing. So those are some of the things that we are seeing. Future, and I think you had like some folks earlier from in the prior weeks, like from Munich RE, and some of the models which haven't seen like fully deployed, but kind of going away from the hardware and software, but kind of, for example, doing water as a service, or whatever the case is, to kind of looking at new business models where looking at the data, especially with technology like AI and machine learning, where you can now predict failure, and now can because of that, you can guarantee more uptime and kind of go towards the value chain and kind of offer that value as a service.
Yeah, no, that's great, guys. So I want to tie a few of those themes together. And by the way, people feel free to start submitting questions. We'll get to Q&A in a few minutes. But Jim, I've always liked that phrase, one throat to choke. I think it represents how industrial companies like to buy stuff, right? And especially with the increasing complexity of some of these systems, they can't handle buying 19 different layers of the IoT tech stack and integrating them. And they want solutions, right? They want full stack solutions. So the closer you can get to that, the better. And you guys both touched on that transition from CapEx to OpEx business models. And those are becoming increasingly prevalent, right? Pay as you go models for equipment and servitization. And I think it's different depending on the industry. Like if you look at the power utility sector, that's an industry that still just mostly wants to buy stuff, right? That's how their books work. But a lot of the manufacturing verticals, a lot of some of these CapEx constrained industries right now during the downturn are much more interested in those OpEx models, right? So I think that finding the right model for the industry is important, but also consolidating, the different elements of the tech stack to provide a solution is super important. Now, we got a couple more questions I want to cover before we get to Q&A. I think one of the inhibitors in the space, as we just discussed, has been business models. I think another one has been culture and change management, right? A lot of people don't like technology, right? Feel threatened by it. A lot of people just don't really believe in the value proposition of digital technologies within industrial operations, which is still very surprising to me. But there are a lot of old school people out there who just don't buy it. So any advice that you guys have for how to sell digital tech up and down the org chart for adoption? Anything you can share about that would be, I'm sure, very insightful for the audience. Who wants to jump on that one?
I can go first this time, and I'll kind of respond in based on my current role, right? So not as a vendor, kind of selling to the customer, but as I mentioned, in terms of my role as the within the startup partnership organization, we're trying to sell up and down our lines of businesses, right? Like based on what we see, what startup, what are they doing, what problem they're trying to solve, and no different in terms of any big corporation where you might have the different lines of businesses with their own strategy, things in place, the short term horizon in terms of what they're looking to solve, limited resources, etc. And now we kind of come and pitch to them a new startup saying like, hey, I think this is something which can help accelerate where you want to go. And you kind of hit the standard things like, hey, not now, we don't have enough resources, or um, to a certain extent even not invented here syndrome, etc. So I think like the biggest thing that which has um, help accelerate the adoption of startups and kind of gearing towards the partnership is really understanding each line of business's problem, right? Like in terms of what they are trying to solve and what value um, uh, the startups can bring to the table, whether it's in terms of go to market or savings on R&D, or kind of complementary solution to what we are offering to kind of add value to our customers, right? But at the end of the day, it's about really the problem solving and the value you're going to add and the impact it's going to drive for that business. And you can translate that to what you are selling that to the customers as well.
Interesting. Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'll talk about it in the context of a more traditional solution sale, right? And honestly, the solution selling is not complicated. It's not easy, but it's simple, right? And in the case here, specifically around IoT solutions, a lot of this is about helping customers to optimize or even drastically change their own business model. Right, you got people who traditionally manufacture stuff, and now they want to be able to wrap services around that, and they want their customers to be able to access information about what it is they manufacture and optimize the user's experience with what they manufacture. So a lot of IoT is about enabling those things. And so a few things, again, a few principles that I think are really critically important. Aligning with the lines of business, right? Those are the people that are responsible for taking the customer's product and solutions to market, and making sure that you're aligning with what they're trying to accomplish. Making sure you have an executive sponsor, right? Selling 101, right? But that you have someone internal who gives direction not only to you, but internally to the customer's key stakeholders on what it is that we're trying to accomplish. Focusing on the 3 R's, right? Which are increasing revenue, reducing costs, and reducing risk, right? You want to make sure that all of your conversations, especially at the executive level, revolve around those concepts. And in a lot of cases, you're helping these industrial companies to create new revenue streams, right? And being able to focus on that, that's a conversation you can only have with the line of business, right? The IT guys or even the design engineers may or may not care about that, but the folks who own the line of business absolutely do care about that. And once you propose a solution or design in a solution, making sure that the engineers and the people that have to implement it have the tools and the support they need to do that effectively. So those are some of the things that come to my mind.
Yeah, and so to echo that, I think one of the things that you touched on is an IoT sale has to unite different buying centers in a different way than other types of sales, right? You're not selling cybersecurity to the CISO, you're not selling a digital marketing tool to the CMO. You're selling a solution that has to go through line of business, IT, probably a few other functions. It's still unclear who owns the budget, whose signatures you need. So this is, it's still a development at most big industrial companies. I'm kind of hoping that this emerging chief digital officer position at these industrial companies is going to unite and become that kind of consolidated IoT buying center. I'm hoping that. The same way I'm hoping for a lot of things that might never happen, but that's one of the things I'm hoping for. So I want to just kind of talk through, we've talked through a lot of the obstacles and a lot of the issues and strategies. I'd love to kind of tie it all together with each of you sharing something about a win, right? A win rolling out one of these solutions. So I'd love to hear just, maybe Bimal, you could go first about just the success story you've had in terms of either rolling out a solution to customers or something that you bought and rolled out internally, just something that kind of ties together all the themes from today's discussion.
Sure. So I can give you like a couple of different examples in terms of the IoT landscape, right? Like one is the traditional predictive analytics for a large utility company, where obviously everybody is going digital, and the utility companies are probably more ahead in terms of their digitization or the digital maturity spectrum, where a lot of the connectivity is already there, but how the analytics kind of play a role. And for this particular energy company, deploying our predictive analytics solution kind of in terms of predicting failure of the asset over the last or assets rather, like the critical assets over the last 18 months has saved them close to 10 million euros in that same time frame, right? And then on the other side, where from a startup partnership perspective, we kind of partnered with a edge device which kind of does both the analytics and the control at the edge for an oil and gas well field, where deploying that solution resulted in over close to 20% reduction in energy usage and kind of increase of 33% in production for the oil. So kind of great examples where that was like a pilot site in one of the Thailand oil companies, and now they're going to roll it out enterprise wide. So two great examples of varying degrees, both at the edge and like kind of corporate wide on the IoT analytics side.
Those are great examples. Jim, you got one to share?
Yeah. So first, I'm just going to give a couple of quick examples of recent wins. Things that aren't necessarily deployed yet, but kind of show the breadth of the IoT use cases that are out there that we're focused on. For example, we just won a deal with a large technology company that provides internet for school buses, right? Very, very critical in the current pandemic situation. We closed another deal not long ago to provide strategic communications related to military bases, right? Can't say a whole lot more than that. Don't know a whole lot more than that. But that's an example, right? And it's not your traditional cell phone communication. It's very much an IoT use case. And then another company that makes electric vehicle charging stations, right? So that's just kind of an example of very recent engagements that we've started. But to give one example of a company that kind of fits the mold of some of the things we were talking about earlier, a traditional customer who's bought hardware from us, both on the module side of our business and on the router gateway side of our business, who traditionally looked at us as a hardware guy, right? Hardware player. And how we've been able to develop that relationship and evolve it over time into a scenario where we can help them with flexibility. We can help them, in some cases, use a combination of hardware and services, take advantage of flexibility around CapEx and OpEx. So this company, without naming them, is a large energy and water resource management solution company, and haven't actually done the formal analysis, but they may be one of the largest industrial users of IoT in the world in terms of just the sheer number of endpoints they have deployed and devices that they have under management. So as I stated, we traditionally provided them hardware to support connectivity, not through us, but just hardware that supports connectivity, everything from 2G all the way to LTE Cat 6 and LPWA, from battery powered devices all the way up to like high speed router aggregators, right? So just all over the map. And this is a business where in some cases the life cycle of some of their hardware it's not measured in weeks, months, or years, it's measured in decades, right? So there's quite a breadth of requirements that we've been able to support over the years with hardware. So what we've been looking at over the past couple of years is, how we service a company like this globally, right? They want to be looked at globally so that they can leverage their scale, but they also want us to tailor to them regionally, right? And especially when you start to get into connectivity, that's a big deal, right? Connectivity is still extremely disparate in the way it's approached in different markets around the world. And that's where, a company like Sierra can help, kind of back to that concept of encapsulating, right? So that you don't have to, go to 150 carriers around the world. So it was the same value proposition we had at Jasper, right? Trying to make that simple for customers to deploy globally and tailor regionally. And we've begun partnering with them to deploy, combined or bundled connectivity services with hardware. And we've also been able to partner with them over time to drive our joint technology roadmaps, right? And plug into the relevant ecosystems, another thing we talked about earlier, and do that in a partnership. So what was traditionally, our role was, hey, here's the hardware. We're now like, hey, here's the full solution where that makes sense. And here's our ability to be flexible in how we deliver that to you in different markets around the world.
That's great. Well, guys, we are at time, so we gotta wrap it up. But I want to thank you both for an insightful discussion. We touched on business continuity, business model innovation, change management, so just a lot of different topics that I think are super relevant right now. And I really appreciate your time and the time of the audience. If anybody in the audience has any follow-up questions they'd like to ask, feel free to shoot me an email. And if any of you would like to connect with Jim or Bimal, please feel free to just let me know, and I'll make the intro. But thanks everybody for your time, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you.